Hey TechKnowStuds! There's some interesting behavior that happens when we're moving or copying files between folders on the same drive and between folders on different drives. So let's just take a look and see what that looks like. I'm on my demo laptop. I have my two files, file 1 and file 2 here, and I have the same settings set up on these files 1 and file 2. This is on the desktop in this test folder, and then I have the test2, which is, as you can see, on the same drive, and that's open right here. However, I've got this eDrive test. So this is on a different drive, and I want to show you some of the behavior that happens with these two files. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this, number one, over to this test folder, and we can see that it just moves over to the test folder. So it disappears from the original and moves to this location right here. And now what I also want to do is drag this same file into this eDrive test. Now what we see here is it actually copies it. So if I drag it between two folders on the same device, it just moves it. But if I drag it onto another storage device, it will copy it. So that's the first interesting thing. What we're also going to do is we're going to take file 2 and I'm going to create a copy of it. So I'm dragging it over to the folder right here, and I'm going to say copy here and create a copy there. And then I'll do the same thing down here. So we got copies on here. And let's just take a look at these properties. So this is the original. I'm going to take a look at the properties here and what the properties look like. I'm going to do the same thing with this file, which was moved onto the same device. And then file 2 here, which has been copied onto a folder on the same device. So I'm going to take a look at the properties of that. And then we're also going to take a look at the properties of one of these, which has just been copied over. So where I'm going with this is what has happened. Our original has these created date, modified date, the last access. When I move a file or copy a file, we can see that here's the file. So this has been created, did not change when we moved the file. But when we copied the file over, now we've got a new creation date. So if we copy files, we create a new creation date. It creates a new creation date. And then down here, we can see the same thing. It's got a new creation date. So when we copy things, it creates a new creation date. And then the read-only tag is maintained. Whether we copy it or we move it, the read-only is maintained. However, let's take a look at security, because I made a change to the security. And the specific change that I made is this example. I added this as a user with permissions on here. So what happens? Well, this is the one that got moved. So this file that got moved maintained those security permissions. But the file that got copied lost that security permission. So security permissions are not copied over. We can see the same thing on this drive right here. This is on a different drive, and when it gets copied over to the different drive, it actually has some different setup here. We've got this authenticated user. So it has copied it, and now it has the same permissions of the drive that it's on. Some of the explanation for this behavior is how it gets saved. We have the files that get saved on here, and so the data that actually gets saved in the cluster. Then we have the allocation table, and then perhaps we have other files such as the permissions file or maybe some other metadata that is saved, and some of that gets copied over while some of it does not. And so that is part of the explanation. And some of it's just that it's engineered that way. For instance, if we're moving a file to another folder and then it is now in another folder, all that's changing is really just this location pointer to it, which would explain why there's not a new creation date for it. However, if we're transferring it to another drive, even if we're just moving it to another drive, all of these bits need to be recreated because it's on a whole nother drive. And so that is going to have a different creation date because now it's created the file and it's brand new on this new drive. My intention really isn't to get into the details of what all changes and what doesn't change, but you just need to know that when you're moving and copying files, you see certain behaviors depending on what devices you're moving it to and from. So just be aware of that.